gonna take Cracker Jack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we haven't really done a segment, a worst of the week segment in a while, Pele. You are the saltiest man on Thinking Critical, the curmudgeon of critical, and you're finally back. We finally have new comic books, and we're going to talk about the worst of the week. We're going to start out talking about Ironman 2020 number 4, which was, as you would expect, awful. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the cancellation of some vintage comics, or the discussion of some cancellation of vintage comics because they're problematic.
It's just, let's Ironman 2020. Who wanted this? Who wanted this crap? Because I think we sold like 4 copies. I ordered 5 copies.
Well, you almost sold
nobody
3.
wants this. Nobody cares about it. I don't think that the people that even bought it care about it. They didn't really buy it to read it. They bought it because it was an event and they're Iron Man fans. It's just, I asked one guy, you enjoying this? Oh, I'm not ready yet. Do you plan on reading it? He kind of shrugged his shoulders. So, that's pretty typical for a lot of comics these days. And, it just looked like some stupid abomination, some Terminator crap.
Pretty weird. I think Dan Slott decided I guess he didn't watch the Terminator franchise because he's decided that the AI robots having free will and attacking society are the good guys in this comic book. I haven't figured that one out from the beginning, but this is a bad book, and the first half of it is just almost unreadable because of the dialogue. I think Dan Slott fancies himself much funnier than he actually is, because there is a ton of just really bad jokes from, I think it's Herbie the Robot. He's the main culprit, but just really shitty, unfunny, just really shitty dialogue. That's the best way I could describe it. I'm not a wordsmith, Pele. I'm not you.
Yeah, no, it's just you're right on the money. It's you got these people like Slott who think that this is an allegory for stuff that's going on in our current ideological crisis, and it's not. It really, really isn't. It has nothing to do with one. Has nothing to do with the other. He's trying to shoehorn this in. It's stupid. It's poorly written. Slott's not a comedian. He's never been funny. It's awful. It's just an awful read. The narrative is terrible. The dialogue is some just trite, stupid, inane crap. And the artwork, I guess, kind of gets the job done in a kind of, in-your-face, stupid, oversaturated kind of way. But, this isn't going to bring people back to the yard. This isn't going to bring people into stores. Like I was telling you earlier, I got 4 people who have put this, who, had this on their pull list. I've asked them, are you reading this? No, they're not reading this. They buy it because they're Iron Man fans. They wanted to have the event. And, I asked the guy, have you read it? You plan on reading it? Kind of shrugged his shoulders. So, this is useless. It's a useless, stupid thing. And unfortunately, it's written by an author who's really gone downhill. And it's Marvel is publishing a lot of poor comics recently, more than they've published good comics. And this is just another example.
I agree with you, but let's get into some of the details just besides the poor dialogue, because that's not the only thing that smells like shit in this comic book. There's some big reveals in here. One of them being that the reason that Arno Stark was keeping his I thought they were AI parents, but apparently they are actually flesh and blood. He cloned himself sort of into his parents, and he filled in the gaps in their DNA with his DNA, so they have his disease, and that's why they were confined to a room. They escaped, and they're dying, and of course they end up dying in the comic book, and he's going to remake them into Terminator machines. But that's not all, folks. There's 2 more really stupid reveals. There's another one that we've all been wondering who the person that was aiding Tony and the AI army was. She was like the ghost in the machine, I believe that is what she was called. Turns out that is Friday. They and Slott lifted this one right out from Ultron, where remember when Jarvis was destroyed and they thought he was dead, but he He fragmented into a million pieces and then reconstructed himself and was aiding Tony in the adventures the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
that is what Friday is doing. She has created her own universe in the digital, the digisphere is what I'm going to call it. She's created her own universe. Tony ends up escaping in there. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. And then the big reveal, the dumbest reveal of all, is that the man on the inside, the person that was feeding Tony Stark and his army of robots information, was none other than that stupid fucking cat who they removed the collar from because no one wanted to hear it speak. And oh wait, there's another reveal that whatever Bane lady,
Stop, please.
the one that Arno Stark supposedly works for, she's not a real person, folks. She's also an AI who thinks she's a real person. It turns out she also died, and Arno Stark remade her. So many bad reveals. The cat one being first and foremost. That doesn't make you want to finish reading, because I know you said you could only make it halfway through the comic book.
I got about halfway through, and I was like, I said, fuck this. I threw it on, I've got like a pile. I've got a fuck this pile underneath the counter, because I kind of grab a comic, when it's hard not to do it's one of those things when you work in a comic book store, you pick up a comic and you read it, especially over the new comics. You grab one, and you're standing over here behind the counter, and I got like this stack of like literally 40, 50 comics below that's the fuck this pile, that I get about halfway through, and oh god, fuck this. I throw it down on the stack, and then after a while, we kind of just gather them together and put them in the discount bin, because usually I've mangled them when I throw them down. But
the good news is you could probably get a full collection of Ironman 2020 out of that stack.
Probably. I know that you could get at least a full collection out of that stupid, what was the shitty DC, Tom King series where Wally
Heroes
West
in Crisis, sir.
Yeah, Heroes in Crisis. God, it's forgettable. But yeah, I know you can pull a whole run out of there from it under there. But yeah, it's just, this is an abomination, and it just reminds me of what the hell's happened with X-Men too, because it's like we're all expecting that the X-Men are going to be considered villains at some along the way on this, because they're doing a lot of villainous, nasty shit, and they've got people that are on the mutant side who are just villainous, nasty people, and oh hell no, they're heroes. Some people are writing them just as true blue, Captain America style heroes. Don't even get me what a cap's like now. But, and no, they're not. These are villains. And that's one thing that you can get about, certain groups, their ideologies that are writing comics, is they don't know who heroes are, and they don't know who villains are anymore. And these fucknuts are just out there just, trying to rewrite the idea of what a hero is. And it's not. And I'm sick and tired of this shit. And, I can't read a damn good comic anymore. I've got to go and pick a back issue from the 70s, 80s, or even 90s, to find a decent comic now, because there's so few of them written lately that have been written in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's just, it's a fucking disaster. And, and that's what the comic readership feels about this, because I hear it every single day. Stuff like Ironman 2020. It's like, why are we getting this? What have we done to deserve this shit? What have we done to deserve these writers and these creators out there and these fucking publishers that are pushing this shit on us? And what have we done to deserve this? I said, yeah, you bought their stuff before. That's why. And they think this is what you want because you bought it before. And I said, the only way you can stop this is don't buy it anymore. Let them drown. And then somebody will come along and will write comics the way that other people want to read them. And, there's a lot of, I don't know if you've been noticing, but there's a lot of companies out there that have pulled all of their advertising budgets now because they went on the stupid woke bandwagon, and now they're losing money, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars now that they're losing, because the woke mafia out there has convinced them that, oh, that's what people really wanted to see. They really wanted to hear this advertising campaign, and now they're losing all this money. So they've decided that for the next year at least, that they're dropping all of their advertising because they screwed up and they're going bankrupt. And, so be it. Let them drown. It's everybody's had enough of this. And, it's now at comics, it's reached a saturation point in comics. I don't know where it's going from here, but it's definitely not getting any better. What do you think?
I don't know, man. It's sometimes, it's cyclical. Sometimes we're on up or sometimes we're on a down. Feels like Marvel is definitely on the way down, where DC's kind of on the way up, at least with Batman and stuff like that. But,
Batman's trying. Tynion is trying. He's really, really trying. And there's some decent DC books right now. But Marvel, holy shit, that's bad. And they're not really trying to bring the fans back anymore. Screw them. Fuck them. That's it.
It's crazy. So on the last thing on the Ironman 2020 thing, so at the very end, Tony, he falls into the Digiverse with Friday, and he kind of relives all of his personalities, and he realizes he's talking to himself, and I think maybe he actually isn't just like a flesh suit. He might actually be a real person, and I think that's what the comic was saying. It wasn't actually all that clear, but it was a shitty comic. It was a waste of my time, but I did want to talk to you about it. Obviously, you couldn't even stomach the whole fucking thing because it was so terrible. But
I tried.
But that is not it, folks. We got more bad news. Obviously, we've seen a lot of cancellations as far as entertainment throughout America happening right now, and they're coming for comic books next. What's happening, Pele?
Well, I want to preface this by saying that there is a racist past in comics. There is some racist imagery in old comics, especially when you get into the World War II propaganda comics. The way that they depicted Japanese soldiers, German soldiers, even blacks in the 40s and 50s. It was not a proud time for comics in a lot of respects. But the talk of canceling these comics, they're an integral part of our history. I mean, there's discussions now, and I sent this out and I tweeted this out, that particular comic site that deals with comic investing, it rhymes with Go Collect, writes this article saying, what are we going to do about these problematic vintage comics? And should we allow people to buy and sell them anymore? Well, I'm like, what do you mean allow people? And talking to the author, and the author says, well, we could just bring heat on them for trying to buy and sell these comics. So threaten cancellation for buying and selling historical comics that have a valuable part of comics history. Okay.
Well, not only a valuable part of comics history, but it's a snapshot of American culture. Now, it might not be something that we're proud of, but it is something you can look back on. It's preserved history, whether you're proud of it or not. It's something that you can definitely go back to and say, at this point in America's history, this is kind of what the culture was like. This is how these things were being discussed, and it's something I think that we can learn from. But I think that I don't think people are seeing it exactly the same way I see these things.
Yeah, not, because activists are very, very specific about the way that they view these things. They think that these things should not exist. The conversation continues from there. If you can't stop people from buying and selling them, what are you going to do next? He says, well, I think that at some point we're going to have to gather these together to keep people from owning them. I'm like, what do you mean gather them to put them in a museum? He goes, no, I don't want people to even be able to see them in museums. I'm like, what? He says, no. I said, you're not talking about burning and stuff like that. He goes, I think that a permanent solution needs to be found. End of discussion. I left it at that, because I knew that there was no way to actually continue that conversation and me stay rational anymore and not just blow up on him, because there's specific groups in the past that have been involved in this, and I don't want anything to do with them. The Russians did this. The Communist Party was really bad about destroying, the past. I think that if you look into the what they call the four olds, whenever a Marxist movement takes over a group, they try to destroy the history, they try to destroy the culture, they try to destroy all the parts that built up and supported the culture that they're trying to supplant. And the way that they do this is just by destroying that person's history, destroying that culture, and that's what we're looking at now. And fortunately, a lot of these comics are so incredibly valuable that they can't just buy them and destroy them, because they don't have the money to do it. You're talking about comics that are worth, thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're very valuable, and they're owned by people who appreciate the history involved, if not the subject matter. So they're not just going to give them up blindly for people to do willy-nilly what they want with them. But it's still a dangerous road to tread. And, we talk about slippery slopes, and this is beyond slippery slope. This is busting your ass, falling down the hill, going, ass over tea kettle. We need to have a really good, rational discussion about these particular artifacts of our history, and whether it be statues, whether it be books, whether it be comics, and discuss what we as a society are going to do about this. And it does not involve destroying these articles. We have to come to grips with society as people need to grow up and understand that, yes, the past is the past, and sometimes it's ugly, and sometimes it's dirty, and sometimes, we don't agree with things that have happened before, but we need to keep these items for posterity so that we don't go down that road again, so that we have a marker in history that we can look to and see what's happened before. And if we start damaging our history, then we're just going to set that as another course in the future.
A lot of things are happening right now. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of action, but not enough discussion, in my opinion. I would love to see some actual honest discourse where we can, like you said, discuss these things, hammer out what our views are on them, and see if we can come up with something close to a consensus on what to do with them. Just going around and destroying things, especially things that don't belong to you, it feels wrong, and it feels like something that probably should be agreed upon by at least a majority of people. Not everybody, but I think a vast majority of people want reconciliation. There is no reconciliation without discourse and open, honest discussion, and I think that is absolutely the key to this. And hopefully there will be a conversation, but I don't see that happening. In the immediate future, the tensions are still high. There's a lot of emotions right now, a lot of raw emotions in America right now, and it's obviously there are people that feel like they need a voice that haven't been heard before. And like I said, it's time to talk, and it's time to listen and see if we can find some type of peace in all this, because I don't think anybody. I think in the end, everybody wants peace. Everybody wants a happy America where we can all live together and raise our children and look each other in the eye and know that we're all respected. And I think that's probably the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. On a specific level, though, since this is a comic channel, destroying comics is not the answer. I don't care how problematic other people think they are. Destroying history is not the answer. These comics aren't being rubbed in people's faces. They aren't being used as propaganda. They're sitting in private collections, of responsible people who know what they are and who understand and respect, the history of comics. And, there doesn't need to be an uprising. There doesn't need to be, a bunch of screaming and yelling.
All right, Paley. Well, I do appreciate this. Obviously, it got a little bit more serious here at the end, as we got a more serious topic here in Words of the Week. But we certainly roasted the hell out of it.
It's pretty bad, though. I mean, definitely part of a worst part of the week.
Yeah, but we definitely roasted the hell out of Ironman 2020. Didn't get it probably specific enough, but we definitely needed to cover this, and I really appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you, Wes. Thanks for having the conversation with me.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.